You are healed. 1 Corinthians 3:16. That's an easy one to remember. You are healed. Let's talk about it. Feel good this morning. You are healed. You are healed. Feel good about it this morning. I want to feel good this morning. I feel great this morning. But something's just stirring inside me. I can't quite get a peace all the time. It's just that place in life. We're on the backside of a revival we had at the donut capital of the world. We did things that I didn't expect. God showed up in crazy, crazy ways. 17 baptisms, close to 500 people in the crowd, and who knows how many we had passerbyers. There's one thing I can't deny, and that is that God is moving in my life, and he's moving in lives around me. And this morning, I woke up to many text messages. I don't quite understand it, but I do understand it, and I love it. And I got a bridge here. We're going to talk about you are healed and why you are healed. We're going to talk about 1 Corinthians 3:16. But I want to kind of tell you the story that leads up into this. I want to tell you kind of where I'm sitting and why I'm sitting and what I'm thinking of in the studio this morning, all by myself with these bright lights on me and my notes in front of me. And I know God's got a place for me to land. You are healed. And so the reason I want to talk to you about that is that there's this intersection of my life and this show and social and marriage and family and children and church and God that I can't explain. I don't think there's an explanation needed. I just think that you need to see it kind of unfold in my life and in your lives and start to look for these things. Last night, I got home. My wife picked me up at the airport. I'd spent 6 days in Florida, 5 or 6 days, working on construction and moving some housing around, divesting some things to reinvest in some other places, just doing normal wired differently business stuff, right? But I was away from my baby. I don't like it, but you know, the return is always great. So she picked me up at the airport, and we knew that it was Sunday. We knew that we had a lot on our plate, and we knew that the Detroit Lions were playing their opening game. So, you know, the interesting thing is where I'm going to go with this is I'm going to take you there a little bit around the barn. I'm just going to kind of share with you kind of how this works. You are healed, how you get from a Detroit Lions game to you are being healed. And how does this manifest itself into your life? Well, as this game goes on, my wife has the cheese and the salami, and we're all getting ready, hunkered in for an 8 o'clock game. And man, was it a game! Oh, it was a great game. And I'm not going to go on this diatribe of the Detroit Lions this season. I spent a boatload of money following those guys around last year, and this year I'm going to sit down and not jinx them and root them all the way to the Super Bowl is my intentions. Man, last night was great. Reunited with my wife. I got to watch the Lions pull off an overtime victory against the Rams, against Stafford. You know, a lot of you all over the world watch this, and football is a big deal over here. And my team hasn't won in 50 plus years. And last year they had a winning season, and this year they're picked to really win it all. Right. Win it all, Detroit Lions. Win it all. Take home the prize. What's this got to do with being healed? Well, I'll tell you exactly what it's got to do with being healed, because I am healed. You are healed. God has talked to us about being healed. And in this world we live, we are prompted by people, friends, and things all the time that the Spirit brings to us, God brings to us. The Christ in us dwelling is manifests himself in us and comes out of us, and good things happen. But not everybody's going through good things all the time. I'm not currently uh, ridden by any illness, although my entire week back in Florida was 4 or 5 doctors. I mean, they're trying their darndest to find something wrong with me, and they just can't. They just can't. But we'll see. They don't like the blood here. They don't like the blood there. They don't like this. They don't like that. They look for it. They're genuinely cheering for me, but I guess they're not really, because they don't make any money unless I'm sick. Interesting, right? What do the Detroit Lions have to do with this? I'll tell you exactly what they have to do with this. You are healed. And on the precipice of a great win around 11:30 in the evening, everybody in the Detroit Kingdom was holding their breaths. We didn't want to start 0-1 with this huge season on the line at home. But it happened, man. We won. But what happens after this is really what happens to me, what happens to you, and what I want to share with you is I got barraged by text messages from friends who have seen me, followed me through the Detroit Lions legacy of losers, right? And now they are known as the team of grit. Leader of the team is Dan Campbell, and he has literally put them on the map. He's literally spoke into them of who he wants them to be and how they're to play the game and how they're going to win it and how they're going to do it. Remarkable job by the coach and the players. But it's interesting, though, that my friends and followers or supporters, whatever you want to call them, I call them supporters, are literally, I'm emblazoned in their minds when the Detroit Lions have ascended into this football hierarchy. And when they win, I get text messages like nobody's business. Like, you did it, you did it, you did it. You stay with them. You're faithful. You did it, you did it, you did it. And so this is what they're thinking of. But interestingly enough, 4 people in that world of Detroit Lions, in that world of supporters of Todd, in the world of drinking the Detroit Lion faithful Kool-Aid, don't ever give up, don't surrender, stay faithful to your core. Your team is what it's all about. It's team, team, team. 4 people out of many came to the top of my mind. You are healed. These 4 people were almost in order the ones who texted me first. I'm not going to give you names because I'm not doing that. I don't do that. But I got to tell you, 4 of them. One with severe heart illness and could be deadly. Don't know if they could get it. 2 with cancer. Prognosis, cancer. Don't have to say anymore. And 1 with diabetes, type 1. These 4 people who are going through life, right, are going through times, going through whatever, are reunited only because of a football game, a winning grit, tenacity of the Detroit Lions, and somehow they assemble that mindset, that feeling, that healing of winning with me. I'm grateful. You are healed. You're a winner. Oh, I texted you this morning. You're a winner. You're healed. Lions are just a, you know, ambiguity out there, something just floating around that God is, through his spirit and whatever, has decided to use to generate a feeling of love, of generosity, of winning, of coping, of all of this. I mean, it's what he has chose in our small circle of kingdomhood. You're winners and you're healed. 1 Corinthians 3:16. Paul says, "Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's spirit dwells in you?" Don't you know? I mean, don't you know? Didn't you know this, my friends? Didn't you know it? I know you knew it. I'm giving you a rhetorical question here, but I just really want you to know. Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's spirit dwells within you? You are a winner. You are healed. The lions are just a way for me to tell this story. The Lions happen to reunite this thought process. The Lions happen to win in overtime. The Lions genuinely create this mindset, mission, movement, and ministry feeling of wired differently. And my job this morning is to encourage you, right? To love you, to inspire you, to motivate you to keep going. Maybe a football team can do it for the moment. Maybe a family obviously can do it for the moments, and all these things around us give us reasons to live and reasons to move forward. But I think it's important that you understand that you're already healed, that these things that you're thinking about and dealing with and moving forward in life and texting your old buddy Todd about great win, grit, all these things. I love you guys. I love you. But here's what I'm telling you is that mindset, that mission, this movement, this ministry, if you're thinking about that, it's because of the Spirit. Paul was in Corinth and he was doing some stuff and he was spreading the gospel. Apollos was over there before him, around him, sometime at the same time. Those two, we don't even know if they met, but Titans. Before there was lions, there was Apollos and there was Paul, right? In Ephesus, he was writing this letter to Corinth and saying, listen, you guys, don't you know that yourselves are actually God's temple and that God's spirit dwells in you? You guys are running around. You've got some good things going on. You're fighting hard, but you're not focused. You're corrupt. You're listening to the wrong people. Listen to Apollos. He's watering. You see, what's happening here is I want to take you through the progression of the 4-temple progression and why you are healed and why I'm talking about this today and how we get all the way from the Detroit Lions creating this feeling and the spirit of euphoria of winning because it brought 4 of my friends together, many friends, but 4, the top 4 that came into me first are the most sickest in this health world environment, but no. They're the most alive. They are healed. They have the spirit of winning. I thought to myself, man, this is a stretch this morning, God. I don't know how I'm going to. But man, it's so easy. You see, God came to us before Christ, and he put this out there that Christ was coming. Christ was coming, and he was going to consolidate all these things so that we could be healed in a much simpler way. And in the Old Testament, we had the very first temple, which was called the Garden of Eden. You know, interestingly enough, I don't believe that anyone was sick in the Garden of Eden. I don't think anybody really, those two were roaming around and they had the whole world as their oyster, if you will say, and they were all fine. And that was the temple. The world was the temple. And of course, Eve took the apple and the Adam and Eve were split up. And then the world became of Satan. And now those two people are trying to get reconnected with God. And that was the story. So the first temple of the four temples that God gave us to be healed and to worship through him and to connect with him was the Garden of Eden. The progression of the four temples. The first temple was the Garden of Eden. And then that was destroyed and sent us through time. The second temple was the tabernacle temple. That was the fleeing of the Israelites, the leaving the Egyptians, and Moses taking them through the wilderness and trekking them for so long, and the complaining and the worrying, but they stayed together. And the temple was in what was called the tabernacle. The tabernacle was a place where you could go find God. You could go talk to God. You could be relieved of your sins. And this tabernacle was a portable place. The first one was the wilderness. God gave us the whole world, and that was destroyed. And then now we go through Moses' trek out of Egypt and freeing the slaves, and he creates the tabernacle, massive kingdom of tents where you could worship and be with God and be forgiven and be closer to God in the tabernacle of tents. And then that was destroyed by the Philistines. Right? The Philistines, they then destroyed this large tent city, right? And that was the incumbent. That was when let's see, we got my notes here. When Babylon destroyed through the Philistines movement in the wars, and then Babylon took over. So listen, you got the Garden of Eden, which was destroyed by eating of the apple, and then we moved to the tabernacle, the tents, and the city of tents as the Israelites escaped Egypt. The Philistines destroyed that tent. And then we move on to the Temple of Solomon. When they reclaim Israel back, Solomon the king comes back and says, this is our nation, this is our land. And he creates this massive structure, a structure of walls and temples, the most beautiful thing ever seen, right? This was where God was worshipped, in the temple, the monument, the bricks and mortar, and the certainty of it. So you got the wilderness, and then so you got the world, and then you got the wilderness and the portable tent, and then you got the fixture of the Temple of Solomon, most beautiful, expensive building the world has ever seen for worshiping and getting close to the high priests and all the things that were going on in that time. But last but not least, the progression of the temples leaves us right here with Paul preaching to the Corinthians again and again and again. Don't you know that we don't have the Garden of Eden anymore? Don't you know that the tabernacle of tents were destroyed by the Philistines, right? And Babylon took over. Don't you know that the Temple of Solomon was destroyed? I took some notes here. The temple, it was destroyed. I don't have my notes there. But anyways, the temple was destroyed and the whole thing was destroyed. Burnt to the ground, right? And now we're sitting here with Christ coming back and we're saying, you yourselves are healed. You yourselves are the temple. You yourselves are where we worship. We no longer have to go to the tent. We never have to, no longer have to go to the tabernacle. We are one with Christ. Christ has come into us. And when we have done that, we are healed. We're healed. We're saved. We don't have the Garden of Eden. We don't have the tabernacle of tents, and we don't have Solomon's temple. We have progressed to the point where Christ did come, rose from the dead, came back to earth, fulfilled the prophecies. And now this temple that people used to go to is now within us. And that's why you are healed. The spirit of the Ruach, we spoke about that in the past. In the Old Testament, God showed up in a spirit of Ruach. That's the unseen spirit, the breath of God. The wind, if you will, the air you breathing is a ruach. But we learned something about today of a new thing, the Shekinah. The Shekinah is the seen godly divine images. The Ruha is the unseen spirit or breath of God. But the Shekinah is the seen glory of God. And so I wanted to separate those two and talk to you about the Shekinah and the glory of God. If you take the 4 temple progression, 1, the Garden of Eden, to 2, the tabernacle, to 3, the Temple of Solomon, and to 4, now finally and ultimately the Spirit resting in you, we learn that in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 3:16. Don't you know that yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? I need you to rejoice in that. My 4 friends were rejoicing with me, rejoicing in the win of the Detroit Lions, rejoicing in the spirit of all those things, because it's a collective soul of winning. It's a spirit of something that's bringing us together as Christians, a spirit of something that's drawing us together, knowing that even though our bodies are failing us in some regard, we are healed. The Shekinah of this world is the glory of God that we see. A beautiful view of the ocean in Florida that I just left. The beautiful view of the mountains you see when you drive through Nashville and Tennessee and all those places, and the waterfalls that God gave us, and the epic sunrise, sunsets over oceans and mountaintops, the epic world that we live in. We see so many masteries of beautiful arts and colors. I mean, God shows up in beauty in the Shekinah of it all, the glory of God. And I want to intersect the Ruha and the Shekinah with you today. And I want you to focus on my 4 friends that are healed today, that you are healed today. I want you to focus on the fact that these people and you are healed today, because in Corinthians 1, 3:16, God said, don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells within you. I need you to focus on the Spirit that dwells within you, because the Ruha and the Shekinah are all in one. Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. We have Jesus Christ in us. All this beauty of the Old Testament, all this beauty of the progression of the temples, the Garden of Eden, right? The tabernacle temples, the fixtures, the bricks and mortars of King Solomon's temple. And finally, we keep getting better and better and better as the Old Testament progresses. And finally, it lands on you. You yourselves are God's temple. You yourselves are saved. My friends that are encouraging me, even in their dire straits, are finding a winning mindset, a winning spirit in the victory of a silly football team, right? But I don't think it's so silly, because somehow these people were collected, united in thoughts of that game with me, and I'm associating that only one way, and it is with God. You know, you yourselves are God's temple. Therefore, you are healed. I love you. I love you. I love you. That was a great message. I was certainly excited to give that to you. And God took us certain ways. Get to wireddifferently.com. That's wireddifferently.com. Type in the promo code after you select your shirt, your t-shirt, your sweatshirt, your hoodie. You select it. Then you hit the promo code WIRED15. You get an additional 15% off of anything you already get there as a discount. These are already inexpensive. They're there for you. I want you to advertise for God. I want you to hype for God. You are misfits. You are wired differently. You are healed. 1 Corinthians 3:16 says, do you know that you yourselves are the temple of God, and that the Spirit dwells in you? What a great message. What a great way to get there through a silly football game. But I just want to reach out and say special prayers to my friends that are not feeling so well and are finding and rejoicing in the win, and this idea, this collective spirit of grit that God has given us through sports and winning, and our relationships on the social, our relations on the texting, our relationships, all built around God dwelling within us. The Spirit dwells in us, where the Ruha, right, and the Shekinah meet. And we have this collision of beauty, spirit, and body on this world, creating us, the OG. We are misfits.